Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a wonderful New Year's holiday show for you tonight. The incomparable Barry Schiff is here. We're going to do some hangar flying. We're going to talk about lessons we can all benefit from, stories, all sorts of stuff. A little bit of a look back also on 2025 and get a little nostalgic here as we look back. Before we get started, just a few things. Well, even though it's cold out there for much of the country, there are just tons of aviation events happening in SocialFlight, including online events just like tonight's show. You can see all of that on SocialFlight.com or the free SocialFlight mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. Tens of thousands of events, destinations, cool things to do, places to fly. We've got our FAA Learning Center, where you can take courses for wings credits there on your own schedule. And if you are a mechanic, either an AP or an AP with an IA, you can take your recurring education directly through SocialFlight, get legal FAA certificates towards your IA renewal. There is still time for the end of the year for you to do that. Check it all out at SocialFlight.com. So there it is. It's all there for you. And our last thing, our Fly to Win challenge. We just gave away a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset on December 1st. Now we're now giving away another one, a free headset, a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset on February 1st. All you need to do is have the mobile app for your phone and check in at your local airport, and you're entered in to win. Do get on our leaderboard, check in, get a lot more points. You might get a chance to get extra entries and give yourself a little bit better chance to win that Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset. Tonight's show is brought to us by Avemco Insurance. We've been working very close with Avemco over the past year, and we're going to be doing a lot closer work as we go into 2026. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's something really exciting. They have access, as you might imagine, as an insurance company, to all the different claims. They know what's happening and on the ground, even things that don't get reported to the NTSB that aren't accidents or at the serious enough level to get reported. They see a much broader picture of what's actually happening out there. And we've partnered with them to learn from that, start to put a bunch of educational materials together. So get ready, you're going to see some very cool things for that coming up. So I just want to say that. Thank you so much to Marcy and Megan at Avemco. We really appreciate their partnership and how much information they're giving us in order to produce some really good safety content for all of you. And now to tonight's broadcast. With over 28,000 hours logged in 355 different types of aircraft, and a best-selling author with a brand new book and more awards than we have time to list, Barry Schiff is an aviation legend. With every article, quiz, and lesson, he continues to impart to us mere mortals in the aviation world a new standard, I really think, in how we can all be better, safer, and more educated pilots. I am absolutely thrilled to call him a close friend. I cannot wait to jump into some hangar flying and a look back on this past year. Please welcome to SocialFlight Live, Barry Schiff. Hey, how are you, sir?
Here. I pushed the wrong button.
Fair enough. All right. Well,
do you know what Henry VIII said to his wives? I won't keep you long, and that's what I'm saying. Anyway, how are you, Jeff?
I am wonderful, and I'm better here now that I'm hanging out with you. I treasure every time we get to talk, my friend.
Thank you very much. I do too. I enjoy this.
So, when you get to the end of a year and you start looking forward, I find you get really nostalgic about like kind of looking back. So I want to ask you a few things kind of about the past year. One of the things, you've told me some interesting stories about Orville Wright, and I know you didn't get to meet him personally, but you've spoken at the same stage. You've had a lot of things that are kind of crossovers. Tell me a little bit about those things.
Oh, this was an interesting thing that he did. He was at the Wings Club in New York giving a speech, and he often didn't give very many speeches. At any rate, he gets up on the stage and he starts to look at the audience, and he said, and he had an hour speech he was supposed to give. He said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, you know, the parrot is the best of all speaking birds. but they don't fly worth a damn. And with that, he sat down. He really did.
When you think about what happened in aviation during his lifetime, I mean, he even got to fly a Connie, isn't that true?
He flew a TWA Constellation. As a matter of fact, he was on a flight. Connie had just been flown from New York to Dayton, Ohio. And the captain of the flight was some guy named Howard Hughes. And I forgot who the co-pilot was. I think a guy named Fry, one of the founders of TWA. In any event, he was in the cockpit and he was invited to control the airplane, fly the Constellation. And he put his paws on this control wheel and started to fly it. And they said, those who were there, you never saw the look on anyone's face as on his. He was so thrilled to be flying the Constellation. Can you imagine having been the first man to fly what he flew, the Wright Flyer, back in 1903, and 45 years later, he was flying a Connie.
That is truly, truly amazing. And it was a really magical time of aviation, right? Because if you really look at what happened, well, I guess you got jet transportation, but since maybe the 707, it's not like there's been that amount of dramatic change as there was during his lifetime.
No, that's correct. Those 45 years. I guess from 1903 until the end of World War II is when all of the changes took place. Then came the jet, of course, and not much has happened. Today's jet is not that much different than the jets of 1950 and 60. They're more efficient, they're quieter, they have better avionics, better electronics, things like that. But basically, they still fly at Mach 0.8, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. A lot of people kind of quote like that. There's 65 years or so, or 67 years between first flight and landing on the moon, and then like what came after that.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, I guess we're going back to the moon someday, aren't we?
Yes, exactly. But we'll see, and we'll see what how much new it really is when we start doing stuff like that. So before we get kind of into just this past year, I do have some kind of things that I was thinking about to ask you, because again, I keep thinking of that word nostalgia. People keep thinking of like, oh, I miss this. I've flown such cool planes. So I wanted to ask you, in different categories. Okay, so we'll stick to a few different categories. What plane you think it would be amazing if they brought back? Like if someone just said, we're going to start making this again, we don't care if it makes logical financial sense, but you just like that has ability. So let's start small. What would you wish that you could go and buy today in the general aviation world?
Well, I'd want a P-51.
There you go. Okay.
Anytime. The P-51 would have to be the airplane. There's nothing one gets a bigger thrill out of than flying that airplane.
Hey, you won me with that. I'm the replica right behind me, man. Absolutely. So yeah, someone putting a production.
I mean a big one.
I know. Someone putting a production real one back into production.
Really?
That would be cool. That would be cool. No, I'm just saying it would be.
Oh,
okay. So that's military. You covered that category. What about just name a tailwheel plane you wish someone would just put back in?
Twin Beach.
Twin Beach. That's great. That's a cool one.
That is one of my favorite airplanes. As a matter of fact, I have a great story to tell you. Given that this is coming up on New Year's, I was on my charter flight that I had been given. I was 18 and a half years old. And isn't it funny how when we're young and when we're old, we use half years, but in between we don't. Anyway, I was 18 and a half, and I was on this charter flight from Burbank, California to Acapulco. I was taking 4 guys down to Acapulco. I picked them up early on the morning of New Year's Day. And we're flying through Banning Pass. It was just a beautiful day heading down toward the Mexican border. We were at 7,500 feet. It was clear as a bell, smooth, beautiful. And all of a sudden, it's as if somebody reached over to both throttles and just pulled them back all the way. Suddenly, there was no power. Now, what in the hell is going on? Before I could even get scared, before I had time to get scared, the throttles seemingly just came back. All the power came back. For about 15 or 20 seconds, I had none, and then all of a sudden it was there. For the rest of my life, from that point on, I've been asking people what conceivably could have caused that. These engines fed from tank to engine. Nothing combined about them at all. And they quit, both of them at the same time. Now, Jeff, you're a maintenance expert. You're a guru. Tell me, what could have caused that other than flying through a cloud of air that wouldn't support combustion? Tell me what that could have been.
All right, so this I'm guessing you've got the answer here, and you're
I
just
don't.
quizzing me.
No, I don't. No, I wish I did have the answer.
Okay, I'm gonna start by saying it was your flight instructor in the right seat.
No, it wasn't.
It was the Czech airman. That's what I'm gonna guess that it was.
This was a charter flight. I had 4 passengers on board. They were all in the cabin. I was up alone in the front of the nose of the Twin Beach.
Wow. If 2 completely independent and no cross feed on fuel, couldn't have been anything like that. Nothing going on. Then your
power came back and then it came on again.
And never repeated itself.
Never. And I was ready to turn around and go back to Burbank, but I thought, well, let's see what happens here. Nothing.
Okay, so my order of prediction on this one is it starts with your flight instructor in the right seat or your check airman there. Okay, the second one there, I'm going to go with stroke. I'm going to go, or I'm going to say it never happened.
Okay.
And other than that, we're at Bermuda Triangle now. Now we're talking.
I'll tell you, that's the way I felt about it. Bermuda Triangle.
Have you ever flown through the Bermuda Triangle?
No. Oh, well, I've flown through it, sure, many times.
Nothing happened.
Do
you remember when that was a thing? When I grew up, that was a thing. Like that meant something. Now, if you ask a kid what the Bermuda Triangle is, they're gonna go, I don't know. Is it something you do when your parents take you to Bermuda? Like
this event reminded me of my all-time favorite aviation book. It was called The Shepherd. I don't know if you've read that or not.
Oh yeah.
Same kind of thing. I mean, how do you explain that?
Yes.
It happened to me. It really did.
I believe you, Barry. I want you to know that. I believe you.
You mean there might be those who do not?
I just want you to know.
It happened. It really did.
Count me. Did you watch a lot of Twilight Zone at the time? Was that going on? Did you look at your wing? Was there anyone sitting on the wing?
This was the Twilight Zone. Let me tell you something. It was a weird season because a week before, on Christmas, I was flying a friend's 210 down to Palomar Airport. Pardon me. And I tuned in the ATIS, and the ATIS was, I forget, what was it? Oh, Noel, yeah. Information Noel. That was what it was. And the controller's having fun. He's using Christmas words. And I was flying 210 Juliet Bravo. My friend's name was Jim Barton. He's the one who owned the 210. I said, this is perfect. And I reported in as Jingle Bells, 210 Jingle Bells. And for the rest of the day, from what I understand, people were using Christmas-related words and phrases in lieu of the normal phraseology. It was apparently a fun day for the controller. Made me wonder, though, what did they use for Zulu? Information Zulu.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you on that one. There's no. You'd have to you'd have to make up a new reindeer. I don't
You
know.
know what? You know what? You know what airline pilots say when it's information whiskey, don't you?
No, tell me.
We call it the booze news.
I like that. I like that. Good, good. Booze news. All right, last one.
By the
on that
way,
list.
it was not 354 airplanes.
No,
No, no, you got that wrong. 364, if you will.
360. You know why? I think this was probably the first it came copied over, cut and paste from the first time, and you added 10. Yeah.
Okay. By the way,
Last one on those planes.
do you know what the world record is?
Tell me.
For someone who has flown the greatest number of airplanes.
I'm listening.
Eric Winkle Brown, who he recently passed, was a test pilot for the Royal Air Force during World War II. And he flew 460, 70 some odd airplanes. And I mean, he flew some oddballs, all the German, Italian, French airplanes of World War II.
Wow. That's that is very, very impressive.
Tell me about it. That was my record. And then when I realized I'm getting too old to break it, I thought, okay, 400. I'm going to go for 400. I'm not going to make that either.
Well, it's interesting. I've I've had a fair number of test pilots here on the show that have long histories and decades and decades of flying different planes, and I've asked them what's that like, and they're like, well, at some point you just know you just can fly anything. It just isn't really an issue. However, what's always hard is it's like how to start it. That's the only issue every time is how do you start it?
That reminds me of a question that I posed to Bob Hoover. I was asking him, I said, Bob, I know that when you escaped from this prisoner of war camp in Germany and you went out to this little field and you found this German fighter or whatever it was, I'm not sure, some German airplane. I said, how in the hell did you start it? How did you know how to start that thing? Everything's in German. And he said, well, it was real easy. I had a gun and a mechanic handy. And he used the gun to get the mechanic to start the airplane.
That's good. That's very good. I like that. All right, last one on that other list. If you were going to bring back and put another plane into production, like maybe a trainer or something for the past, what would you grab? What would you like to see someone do?
Trainer. I think the best trainer that could be put back into production was the original Super Cub, not the J3 Cub. It had its limitations. Super Cub was a great airplane.
Yeah,
I love to see that. And there's a modern version of it in production, of course. But the original Super Cub was a pretty nice airplane as a trainer. But the one I haven't flown that I'd like to fly would be the Jenny. I'd love to fly the Jenny. Yeah.
Okay, everybody listening, if anyone knows of a Jenny out there that we can get Barry into, then we can move to 366.
Well, they won't let me anymore. I was going to fly a couple of.
No one's listening. No one's listening. We'll let you and not tell anybody.
Now, I'll tell you why they won't. It's insurance. See, I'm 87 now, and it's really tough.
Yeah, time to fly uninsured. There you go. I guess that's your only option. You can't give up flying.
I've done it. Oh no, I'm not going to give up flying. I don't think I could. I'm obsessed with the sky. In fact, I'm beginning to write my autobiography. Don't ask me why. It's not. I don't expect anybody to buy the damn thing, but I am writing my autobiography, and the title of it is My Obsession with Flight. I can't stop. I can't stop.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, we have had some pretty cool things that have happened over the past year, and I wanted to get some thoughts on some of that from you. One of the ones that was most recent it's interesting. In 2025, there was an awful lot of kind of talk with Garmin's Autoland, right? Where now they started, you know, on a Cirrus, and then they went to some other, or they, I guess they started first on the turbines, and then it first made into pistons on a Cirrus, and then it's on some other aircraft. Where now, instead of the whole world of pull a parachute as if the aircraft fails, now the focus is on what happens if the pilot fails, not the aircraft. And you can push this button and the plane will do everything. We'll call make the radio calls, choose the airport, navigate, get around weather and terrain, land, shut down, tell passengers what's happening the whole time, all this stuff. And recently, a King Air had the first time this was actually used, and it was because of a depressurization, and the pilot decided this was the safest option. And so they had depressurization, clicked Autoland, let the plane land itself. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this kind of new dawn of this kind of technology being available.
Well, first of all, I have some thoughts about what this fellow did in the King Air. I think he could be in a world of hurt because he essentially took over the skies. He went to a controlled airport without a clearance and all of that, without being in an emergency. This was not an emergency. He's going to have some explaining to do, I think, to the FAA. At least that's
why is depressurization doesn't qualify as an emergency?
Yeah, but it doesn't qualify as you're being incapacitated. I mean, we've had pilots have had depressurization since day one. You put on an oxygen mask and fly the airplane. And
so you think there's a chance? I mean, the aircraft declares the emergency, so so he might be questioned as to whether that was a legitimate emergency.
Yeah, and I don't know that they'll be able to justify that. And then again, maybe they'll just let him get away with it. But he could be in trouble. It reminds me of a problem I would have with that system. In order for that system to be effective, you have to tell your passengers before departure that in case I die, push that button.
Yes, you are absolutely right. They have to be briefed on that.
And now I'm having a little bit of a problem. How are my passengers going to feel when I say, if I die? Wait a minute,
you imagine
we're going to want to go.
It's, you know, it's interesting because when you think about it, I remember an old Far Side cartoon. You remember the Far Side, the like old funny cartoon? I remember an old Far Side cartoon where they showed a guy's armrest on a commercial airliner, and the caption and on the armrest it had like recline, and then it had like TV channels, and then it had a button wings fall off. And then it said, and it said like unknowingly Daryl dooms the flight to tragedy or something, like accidentally. And so if you think about applying this technology to an airliner, you're almost saying like there's a break glass, on every seat or like in the air, like, so it's like pulling on a subway, right? Like, I'm not comfortable, I don't trust, land, and they'd have to announce, you know, your captain today and first officer are so and so, and if we're not feeling great, but should we actually have a problem, there's a red button.
Tell me, Jeff, how would you feel if every flight you have to tell the people, you know, all your passengers, those who are even, you know, frightened about flying to begin with, how would you feel about telling them, in case I die, push this button?
Well, hopefully there's a better way of saying that.
Yeah, but really, that's what it means, doesn't it? That's
well,
exactly.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of my retirement flight. If you'll excuse me for 1 minute, we're taxiing out. I'm going to runway whatever in LA, and I didn't realize this, but my son knew. Brian, who was my co-pilot on the flight, knew what was going on, and I pulled along the taxiway, and suddenly these fire trucks pull up in front of me, and start squirting the, the time-honored tradition of squirting water, fire hoses over the airplane. And I'd never thought about this before, but I'm sitting in the cockpit realizing, hey, this is really nice. But I got a couple hundred people back there who are watching fire trucks pouring water on my airplane. What are they thinking? And I realized this isn't normal. So I picked up the public address system and told everybody what was going on so they wouldn't think our airplane was on fire.
That's good. That's good. And timely, because within 2025 we have the opposite happening with that aircraft that pulled in. I forget what airline it was, and they pulled in. The pilots shut down. They thought everything was fine. They didn't know there was a problem. The engines were shut down, but because of a fuel leak, a fire started on one of the engines at the gate. And basically everyone on the aircraft knew the plane was on fire in that case, and what that they're except for the crew.
Yeah, I don't know. They're pulling into a gate. They have marshals who are guiding them in. You would think somebody would say something to them.
I think the fire started after they shut down, but that was
wow.
Yeah, they had a leak on the hot engine that did that. But go figure, kind of the opposite of what you just described.
Yeah. I had a co-pilot once. He had just been on the Douglas MD-80, McDonnell Douglas MD-80, and he was now a brand new co-pilot on the L-1011. So he was going from a 2-engine airplane to a 3-engine airplane. Well, I gave him the leg from LA to New York, and he was thrilled with that. And he pulled into the gate, and he shut everything down. And I wasn't paying as much attention as I should. This was 5 o'clock in the morning. We were tired, get to the hotel. So he shut everything down. It was fun. When we get out to the curb, we're waiting for a crew bus to pick us up. And we hear an engine running. What the hell? Why is this engine running so long? It's 5 o'clock in the morning. What's going on? All of a sudden, a mechanic came running out to the street. He says, "You got an engine running on your airplane." I said, "What? What do you mean?" My co-pilot was accustomed to shutting down 2, not 3. We ran back to the airplane and shut down the number 3 engine. At least it didn't catch on fire, and the chief pilot didn't hear about it either. Thankfully.
That's funny. I had a funny story having to do with 3, and that is, this really happened. I was in an FBO.
What do you mean? You think this didn't happen?
Oh, no, I'm telling you the one I'm about to tell you. I believe you. Trust me. 100%. No question. You would never tell a lie. Are you kidding me? You're like, you chopped on the cherry tree. So I was talking to someone, I think it had to do with like flying over Lake Michigan or something like that. And someone was saying to me, like, oh, I would never do that in a single engine airplane, only in a twin. And right next to us, there were 2 different, this was a busy FBO with lots of jet traffic. There were 2 corporate jet, different crews talking. And their conversation was a Falcon pilot talking to like a Gulfstream pilot. And he was saying, I would never go over the Atlantic with less than 3 engines.
I felt that way about 4.
Did you? Tell me.
Well, the original 707s and 747s. Yeah. No, there's nothing going over the Atlantic now with with only 2 engines. That's all.
And did you actually feel that way some when you started going down to 2, when everything was going down to 2?
Yeah, absolutely. We did. The 4-engine airplane was the only way to go.
Makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, do you remember there was a British Airways captain, took off from Los Angeles in a 747, destined for London, a 10-hour flight, and he lost the number 1 engine shortly after takeoff. And he kept on going.
And that's acceptable?
Huh?
Is that acceptable?
No, it wasn't, but he did it anyway. He started to run a little short of fuel, had to land in Manchester for fuel, just a little short of London. Now, I don't know if he got into trouble or not, but our regulations would not have allowed that.
Wow.
But he did it. He went that way. Now, if you took off in a twin and lost one, I don't think you're going to go to London.
No, I don't think that would work out at all. I still can't even imagine going with a dead engine heading directly out over the water after that. Yeah. I don't care how many you have. I wouldn't do it in the Spruce Goose. It doesn't matter.
Do you think the Spruce Goose was made of spruce?
Yes, wasn't it? No?
No, I forget what it was. Forget that type of wood, but it was not spruce.
Interesting. Well, I had a serious question having to do with that Garmin stuff just before we leave that completely, and that is, so it would seem to me that if this becomes kind of normalized technology, lots of planes end up having it, and we have this kind of emergency way of landing a plane where the autopilot does the whole thing, it would seem that maybe 5-10 years from now, the technology is proven enough that someone might move it into mainstream for normal flying. Like where now your autopilot can not just shoot the approach and then you break out and land and stop, but do the whole thing, no matter what it is. And you can choose to just have your autopilot completely land the plane to a stop. What would that mean if that happened? Do you think people would start thinking like well, my plane can do things that maybe as a pilot I can't? The weather doesn't look great. I'm not used to this visibility in ILS at night or IFR approach to low altitude at night. But I have a button I can push, and this plane will go all the way in. So I feel like even if I don't feel like I could do it, this plane can. So I feel okay. Do you think that might be where we're going?
It's possible. People might get that attitude. We've had auto-land airplanes for a long time. In fact, the best of them was the L-1011 when it first came out. We'd fly into London or Paris or even LA with visibility 0-0. It was called Category 3B approaches. Actually, it was not quite visibility 0. We had to have, I think, 50 feet or something like that, 100 feet. And the reason we had to have that much is so that we could taxi off the runway and find the gate. Otherwise, you couldn't make it. But we made, Category 3B landings on Autoland all the time. And in the L-1011, there was nothing new about that. But the difference is between that and the new Garmin is that on the new Garmin, it takes over control of where and how you're going to get to where you're going. Where on the Autoland airplanes.
Oh yeah, you're not in control anymore. Yeah, you're no longer the pilot.
No, you're yielding control. So what you're doing in a case like that is you are essentially declaring an emergency, even if you're doing this just because you want to.
It will be very interesting to see. I think this will happen sooner rather than later. If this King Air is not the case that you're talking, that you're, where it's iffy, it's almost inevitable that at some point in time, someone will kind of intentionally misuse the system. And
every system gets misused.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see when that happens for the first time and how everyone reacts to that. That'll be interesting.
I agree. Certainly there are instances where people who fly a Cirrus with the CAPS system have used it when they didn't have to. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's happened. I can't cite any instances, but I would have to believe it has.
Yeah. Well, it's a new world. So there's a lot of kind of interesting things kind of going on. So one of the things that I always look forward to every month are your articles in AOPA. I absolutely love them.
Thank you.
What have you got coming out soon? If I can kind of jump the gun into 26, or what you recently write about?
Well, the hardest part about writing a column for the magazine is that is coming up with a new subject. I've written them for many, many, many years. And trying to come up with something I haven't written about before becomes extremely difficult. And if I can come up with a subject, then the writing becomes a lot easier. I will not resort to AI, and I can see that. And I can see, there are magazines out there now, I guarantee it, that are using AI. And I can name the titles and their aviation.
We know them. We're not going to name them so that we don't have to deal with the aftermath. But to those of you in the audience right now, I will say there's some big titles out there that, unfortunately, I believe, this is my opinion, unfortunately have chosen to kind of lay off or get rid of staff that were pilots that we all knew, that we were all friends with, that we respected. And there aren't a lot of people left in some of these places that fly airplanes and get it. And the result is, whether it be a magazine or whether it be in our inbox in email, you look at things and you're like, okay, one story is about a defense contract, and another story is about an airline thing, and another story is about something which, and it just doesn't add up anymore. That, yeah, I'm not a fan. Tell me what you think about AI in writing.
Well, from what I've seen so far in some of these articles, they lack, and I think we've discussed this, Jeff, they lack a soul. They lack feeling. They lack the passion. They lack passion. They just talk about hardware, and it's pretty boring, actually. AI written material, I think, is boring.
Well, you know, one of the challenges, you just said something very true, because obviously we both write for magazines, we both write for publications, and it's true that the hardest thing is what you're really going to write about that you believe is insightful and timely and helpful and works for their audience, like people really will help them, and then it flows into, you know, a good article that's worth reading, hopefully. And I don't think you can really ask AI the right things unless you're someone who really understands general aviation. If you're a maintenance expert, you understand that. If you're a pilot or a flight instructor or a safety expert, whatever your expertise is, that's where the passion comes from of what the subject is going to be about. And then it does lose something even if AI writes it. It's troubling to me because I'm hearing more and more and more from people in the publications saying our goal is to have less staff and start using AI.
And how do you know it's accurate?
Good point.
You know, I think an expert needs to write about things about which expertise is required.
Yeah. So since you are an expert, what are you writing about these days? Tell me some of the cool things.
I try to come up with interesting stuff. For example, I just wrote a column. I don't know if it's out yet or not. It might be out. And I don't think it had been written about before, which made me really feel good, because that's what I love to do, is about emergency descents in light airplanes.
Oh,
if you were to have an engine fire, we know the first thing you do, obviously, is shut the fuel off to the engine. But then you want to get down in a great big hurry, in a real hurry, so you descend as rapidly as possible. What technique are you going to use in any given airplane? Some airplanes, you put the gear down because they have high gear speeds, and they go down fast that way. In another airplane, the gear speed might be so slow that you wouldn't get down fast enough. So you have to develop or learn a technique for getting down in a hurry. In a lot of airplanes, like a 172 or something like that, you're just going to push the nose down and go fast. But you know, there's a great big challenge to that. You go down in a great big hurry, maybe even at the red line, let's say, and you want to get on the ground as quickly as you can, because that engine fire might start again. It might erupt. The change of airspeed can cause a fire to reignite in an engine, for example. So you come down at VNE, red line, and now you got to land. And all of a sudden you're going so fast. Have you gone too fast as you approach the airport? So this column talked about some of these variables, and I enjoyed writing it because it may have been written about before, but I haven't seen it. So
let me ask you a question. Would you exceed VNE in an emergency?
If it's on fire, it's really going ablaze, yeah, I might, sure. You know you're allowed to. You know what happens at 10% above VNE is when you can get flutter. And flutter, of course, is where the airplane starts shaking itself apart or breaking itself apart. So you wouldn't want to go too much over VNE. You can trade one danger for another.
Interesting. Well, that's a good one. That is a really good one. And do you talk about like whether you spiral or whether you go, direct to somewhere, or in terms of technique?
You want to get on the ground as rapidly as possible.
So you're gonna give me some of the answers? Is it slipping? I feel like there's some magic answers to some of it. I know in the bands I would drop the gear.
There are no magic answers, but whatever the answer is for your airplane, you have to know and be prepared to use it just in case. And by the way, this notion about an engine reigniting, the fire reigniting, that's actually happened many, many times, where you will shut the fuel off to the engine and you think, oh, look, the fire's out, I'm fine. And all of a sudden it reignites, and a change of airspeed can do that. So if you want to get yourself down in a great big hurry and get on the ground as quickly as you can, it's not something, an engine fire is not something you can play with.
Yeah. You've written something recently also, I believe, or at least I've seen you talk about it on the topic, that had to do with different crosswind techniques also. Tell us a little bit about that versus kind of crab or kick out or other, slipping. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are there are different ways to make a crosswind landing. And there's the conventional method, of course, of slipping the airplane and landing it in the slip. But if you're in a big airplane like a 747, for example, you don't want to slip the airplane. Number one, it's a swept wing airplane. It doesn't slip too well. And you have big pods underneath the wing. So if you lower the wing too much, you can scrape a pod on the ground. So there's a method that was developed for these airplanes that also can be used in light airplanes rather handily, called the kick-out method of crosswind landing. And interestingly enough, you can read this month's column and learn about it.
All right. You're not going to give too many secrets away then, having to do with it.
No, I need my readership. They have to read it.
Okay, well, I'll ask you another one, which is not in your recent article, so I know it's there, but it is something that I think has been a big topic of yours in 2025, very applicable to our New Year's celebration here, and that is the idea. You've taught me a lot, and so has Brian, about the dangers of climbing at VX, so best rate of climb.
Yeah. That, of course, climbing at VX is something we're all taught to do. And we have to perform a climb at the best angle of climb speed. Even to get a private pilot's license, you have to be able to do it. And I am trying to convince the FAA to discourage the use of VA at any time. Because if you are climbing at VA, which is not that much above stall, by the way.
VA, you saying VA? VA is VX or
VX. I misspoke. Okay. First time I've ever done that. I misspoke. VX. If you pull the nose up into a steep attitude, and let's say you get 50 or 100 feet off the ground, and you have an engine failure, there's no way to survive it, because you can't put the nose down. You don't have any room left, and you're going to crunch the airplane. If you hold the nose up, you're going to stall and crunch the airplane. And it's really, really difficult if you have an engine failure. to salvage the airplane if you have an engine failure while climbing at VX close to the ground. And,
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was always taught VX, and after talking with you and Brian and really paying attention to it and realizing the reaction time that it takes when something happens to how quickly you would slow from VX versus climbing at VY.
there's no
As soon
margin.
as I clear the trees, I'm like, nope, VY. As soon as I clear the trees.
There's no margin.
Mm.
No margin at all. So they say, well, what do you do if you have to climb over an obstacle? And my answer to that is you don't fly into a situation that would require that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Or let's develop a different procedure. Let's develop a procedure where we use perhaps a moderate speed between VY and VX, somewhere like halfway in between. And that would probably work in 90% of the cases. Now, there was an accident that was videotaped that is on YouTube. And in the column during which I wrote about the hazards and dangers of VX, I included the link to that video so you can see what happens to this airplane when the engine quit at about, I would estimate, maybe 75 feet or something like that. And the airplane at VX, it just pancaked into the ground and it blew itself apart. I mean, pieces flew every which way. I don't know what happened to the pilot. I always hoped he was okay, but it looked as though he'd have to have been at least injured. It was pretty bad. And that was a result of an engine failure at VX. And I don't think it's worth the hazard. And flight instructors have to do this all the time because they're teaching students how to perform climbs at VX. So they're particularly exposed to this hazard. And I don't like it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, flight instructors are in really difficult situation because yeah, they have to do VX, they have to do short field, soft field, all these things, and teach people about all these situations over and over and over again for no reason other than to demonstrate it.
Yes, that's right. Now, if you were to see this video, you would probably never make a VX climb again. And I would be delighted. Can we somehow provide the link?
Not through the show, but we'll see if we can put it up during one of our future shows or something. I don't have that link, but yeah.
I mean, I'll provide it to you, and I think that those who are watching tonight or today or whenever they're watching it would, I think, benefit greatly from it.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So another topic is that big news in 2025 is Mosaic. What are your thoughts on kind of Mosaic? Obviously has a few different aspects. It's got a pilot aspect of pilots being able to fly different aircraft as sport pilots. It also has another level of aircraft being able to be certified new that anyone can fly, but using a different rule, Generation 2 LSAs coming out. So really two different branches. What are your thoughts about the impact of Mosaic?
I think it might have gone too far. I think initially I thought this is stupid, it's too restrictive. If you can't fly a 172, for example, which has got to be the safest airplane ever made, then there's something wrong with that requirement. I mean, there's something with it. I just disagree with it. They have the wrong limitations. The 172, for example, I don't know if most people realize it. They've made millions of them, and yet not one has ever killed anyone as the result of a structural failure. That's really quite remarkable.
Yeah.
So I think they've gone a little bit too far now. The requirements of being able to fly higher, faster, farther might be a little too liberal now.
Yep. I just, by the way, put the link for everyone in the chat group. If you, Brian Schiff actually sent it, and so hopefully people will be able to get that link. So that should that should work. Look in the chat section if you don't know how to get there in the GoToWebinar. That should have the link to the video that Barry was just talking about. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Can I say hello to Brian?
Absolutely, by all means. Like, let's have a chat show. So, what do you have any resolutions for 2025? Or what are your thoughts?
Fly more.
Fly more. Okay.
Absolutely, fly more. Yeah.
And don't crash.
And don't crash. Try not. I desperately try not to do that. I did that once, you know. I crashed once.
Really? Tell me.
Yeah. I was up in Alaska flying a Super Cub on floats and had departed from Lake Hood. Brian's mother was my passenger in the back seat. And we had, actually we had separated at that time, but we were still friends. And shortly after takeoff, the engine quit. And from where we were, there was really no place to go. And I said, I got to try and get back to the lake. So I started to glide back to my left. All pilots seem to turn left when they have to do that for some reason. At any rate, a float plane is not much of a glider. It has a pretty good sink rate because of all the drag created by those floats. And I was getting back toward the lake and heading over the edge of the lake, and there were some airplanes parked along the edge and some docks. And so I pulled back on the stick a little bit to try to get over those airplanes so I wouldn't hit them. And then I started feeling really mushy. The stick was getting very mushy. And I thought, I can't do that. And I kind of let the nose down a little bit so that I wouldn't stall the airplane. And the floats struck the top of one of the airplanes parked on the dock. It was a 185 on floats. And I can tell you how much it cost to fix that airplane. A lot of money. Anyway, the airplane I was in flipped over onto its back, and I was upside down in the water. And the funny thing was, I started to try to pound out the glass to try to get out of the Super Cub that was filled with water. And I couldn't thrust my fist fast enough or hard enough to break anything to get out. And my lungs started to hurt a little bit, and I realized that, you know, this might be the end of it all. And suddenly I realized, you stupid idiot, open the door. So that's what I did. I opened the door and I got out. I got out and I found myself standing in 5 feet of water. And there were some fellows from shore who had gotten out to the airplane, and they were taking my wife, ex-wife, I don't know what we were, out of the airplane. And we survived that okay.
Wow.
And the airplane was pretty well damaged. The airplane was destroyed except for the floats, which were salvageable.
Do you remember what your next flight was then? What it was like getting back on the horse in that case?
I don't. It was, oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. It was an airplane I was up there to write a story about. It was an Arctic Tern was the name of the airplane that was being manufactured up there. And it was basically an interstate cadet, which had been modernized in some way. And I was writing an article about that airplane. That's the airplane I wrote. I flew after the accident, but it was a couple of days.
Yeah. Did you feel that it, having been through that it changed how you felt about flying or how you approached it?
No, it was just one of those things. There was not much I could have done about it one way or the other. They discovered stuff in the fuel filter, gunk, some sort, and clogged up
so
the.
fuel contamination type issue.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was not anything discoverable during the pre-flight because I absolutely drained the tanks.
Wow.
It was downstream of the fuel.
That's I'm glad you're still here. How's that one?
Me too, young man.
And so as we go from this, and now we launch into 2026, a little over 24 hours from now, do you have any like things you'd like to accomplish? What's your wish list? And what's your aviation wish list if you were going to put something there for 2026 for yourself? We already know someone. If you said if we've got someone that's got a Curtis Jenny, you want to fly it. Anything else?
Yeah, but that's too easy. My favorite aspirations in what I do is to try in my own little way to make flying safer. So anything I can write about that helps people become safer pilots is something that I aspire to accomplish. I enjoy that kind of thing more than anything else. It all happened as the result of a letter I got from a reader a long time ago. And the guy had written to me stating that I had saved his life and the life of his family. Aboard, they had been flying a Cessna 182. And something I wrote apparently caused him to believe that I saved his life as the result of what I had written. Well, I keep trying to do that all the time now, as best I can, in ways that, may not have been written about before. I love doing that. I love to teach. And if I can help pilots become safer and better pilots, there's nothing I would aspire to more than that in the next year or any year thereafter.
Well, I think that's a wonderful sentiment, and I can tell you, my friend, that you have made me a safer pilot by far. Knowing you, there is no question that you have made me a safer pilot. And you made an amazing son that I also do a show with, and I know he's doing the same thing. And Brian just had a case where someone was was a passenger on his flight and told him he was a passenger on his flight because he was watching his show, and with high winds and things like that, he made a decision not to fly his own plane, but to take the airlines. And lo and behold, who's on the flight deck? But Captain Brian Schiff. So,
Yeah.
You've done, you do that. You've made a change in me. You've got a legacy following after you.
The kid does pretty well. I wrote a column about that. As a matter of fact, he called me one day, and he said, "Dad," he said, "I just had the best flight I ever had." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Tell me about it." He said, "Well, the wind was blowing like hell, and he had this little Aranca Champ. I think he was a partner in it." And he said, and I'm automatically thinking, "Oh my God, he went up at the big wind in an Aranca Champ." Anyway, he said, "I was taxiing out, and the wings were rocking, and the airplane was lifting them." He said, "I went back to the hangar and parked it." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, that's the best flight I ever had." And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful attitude to have.
Yeah,
We should all have such great flights.
absolutely.
This reminds me of an event that I experienced in East Africa. My wife, different wife, I've had a few, and I and another couple were flying a Piper Arrow around East Africa. And we were headed from Nairobi toward the Mount Kenya Safari Club. This was a really expensive place to go. And not only is it expensive, you had to pay for your entire accommodations in advance. A lot of money. Anyway, we're flying toward that place, and the other couple in the airplane was my doctor. That was nice to have a good doctor with you, and his wife. And we came across some cells that looked kind of ugly. And I told Frank Taylor was his name. I said, Doc, I said, if we skip around to the left, I believe we can make it okay, because otherwise we might have a difficult time getting through. And Frank put his hand on my shoulder in a most avuncular way. He said, Barry, he said, let's turn around. Let's go back. So what are you talking about? We paid for this. A lot of money. He said, you know something? We're going to turn around now, and in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it will not have made any difference at all. But if we keep going, it might. We turned around. And it was an extremely valuable lesson that I try to pass on to others using that example. And doesn't matter whether we turn around. There's nothing so important that we shouldn't turn around when conditions dictate.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. So Barry, thank you so much for joining us this evening here, especially on such a great show, rounding out 2025 and launching us into 2026. I'm grateful for everything that you do for General Aviation, everything you've done during your entire career, and certainly very grateful for your friendship.
You're doing your share, Jeff, and you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll be seeing you in January, so I look forward to that. We'll get dressed up as penguins and go strut our stuff. All right. You take care. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
And thanks so much to all of you for everything that you do to support General Aviation and for being part of the SocialFlight family. It's really continues to be an amazing adventure. I am grateful that you're joining us on all these wonderful shows and in the SocialFlight community. I hope you had a wonderful 2025, and I wish you the best 2026 possible, safe and fun and filled with lots of adventure. And with that, we'll be back next Tuesday, January 6th, with the amazing Corky Fornoff. It's going to join us here on the show. Corky flew all of the planes for the James Bond movies, including those amazing BD-5 microjets, and he has just so many stories to tell. He's done things he's been on here once before, but I'm telling you, he's a hoot. It's going to be a ton of fun. Please join us next week on Tuesday, January 6th, with Corky Fornoff to kick off 2026. And then I'll be back here with Brian Schiff on Cockpit to Cowl on January 13th. Again, that's a different show, so you have to register for that one. Cockpit, the number 2, and the word cowl, cockpittocowl.com. Brian Schiff, we are going to talk about how to crash an airplane. And you're going to learn a lot during that one for sure. I know I am. So with that, again, thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful 2026, and I wish you all blue skies.